My name's David Landini and I'm here today at the Bended Elbow Hotel in Albury, and I will say right now it's a great venue. It's a magnificent building on a beautiful winter's day. And I'm with Tim Quilty, a member of the Victorian Legislative Council, elected to Parliament some years ago. So good morning, Tim. Can you just tell us about your political career today, Tim?
Morning. We had to cross the border this morning, or through the checkpoints, because the borders are locked down now, to get here to Albury. I'm a member, as you said, a member of the Victorian Upper House. I was elected the last election in 2018 for the Liberal Democrats Party.
Yep.
Basically, we're a party of small government, personal freedom, lower taxes,
Yep.
Rights of the individual. We think the state is too powerful. We think that people should be able to choose, not the government.
Right.
Less rules. My personal view comes from my country background, growing up in a little country town on a farm, where you're expected to take personal responsibility for yourself.
Right.
Where adults could go and decide for themselves, and I've found it very hard coping with these increase of rules that we have coming out of the cities, or with philosophy based on city way of life, which just doesn't relate to country people at all.
Yeah.
And that's what drives my personal politics, is the desire that we should be free to make our own choices.
Yep. And at the moment, Tim, you live in Wodonga at the moment.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're originally from Adelong or somewhere around Adelong?
Adelong in
New South Wales.
Yeah.
Yep.
My parents got a farm up there. They're still there farming.
Yep. And Tim, of very great interest to people interested in a riverine estate, in your maiden speech to the Victorian Parliament, you actually mentioned, Tim, the separation of Northern Victoria and Southern New South Wales and into a union of one state. Now, I didn't actually read your speech, but I believe that's what it was about. Can you tell us about your maiden speech, Tim, particularly that issue?
Yeah. So that was only one of the things I mentioned in my speech. I called it Brexit. We were playing, we just had the Brexit in Britain, so I was playing on that idea for Brexit, for the regional state, for regional areas to break away from the cities. Because we're dominated by Melbourne, we're dominated by Sydney. People who've never been in the bush or in the country or done the kind of jobs we do out here with irrigation or timber or whatever, making up rules for how we should live, how we should access the bush. I don't like it. I don't think any of us like it. So that was the idea behind that, is to say that you can't keep making rules to tell us how to live. If that happens, we will break away. We'll form our own state. As at the time I was saying it was more of a rhetorical thing to highlight what they're doing to us, but the longer I've been there and talking about it, the more real it becomes to me. So we're now at the point where we really think this is something we should do, we can do, and we must do.
And I think, Tim, if you just in New South Wales, as the example of New South Wales, there's 93 electorates and members of the Legislative Council, which is over 76% of the Parliament, from Newcastle, Sydney and Wollongong. And it really is more than a domination, it's actually a super domination in New South Wales. And I think Victoria, I think you got the numbers there, Tim, Victoria has a very, very similar situation to New South Wales.
Yep. We have at least 60 of the 88 electorates are based in Melbourne, and then a couple more in the Bendigo and Ballarat and Geelong. So the whole state is dominated by Melbourne. We have the difference between New South Wales and Victoria is the Victorian Upper House is divided into regions, and 3 of those regions are regional regions, so Northern Victoria, Western Victoria and Eastern Victoria. But even that, parts of those electorates are made up from Greater Melbourne. The suburbs of Melbourne are flowing over into that to try and make the numbers up. So increasingly the voice for regional Victoria is vanishing.
It is. It's very similar. It really is the same as New South Wales in that the voice for the country is declining continually, and the voice goes into the city, and we really have a super domination in both states of the metropolitan areas of those states.
So we've just seen in Victoria they've rolled out a ban on the timber industry. In 10 years' time. They've given it 10 years to shut it down, but they've shut down the native timber industry in Victoria. That's not the ideas of people in the country who know timber is sustainable. That's the ideas of people living in the city who've never been in the bush, and all they know about the bush is it's lovely and we shouldn't cut the trees down. It's just complete nonsense, but that is now the dominant view.
And if for example, there was a Northern Victoria and Southern New South Wales single state, that decision with the timber industry, it's very unlikely that prohibition on native timber harvesting would come about.
Oh, exactly. The people who live there understand the industry and know that it's not just a sustainable industry, it's a good industry, it's got jobs. It's good for the environment, cutting down trees and regrowing them. It's sustainable, you harvest carbon out of the atmosphere. The same thing with the river, the Murray-Darling plan. The
Murray-Darling Basin plan.
It's being driven by people in the cities who've never been out the river, don't understand how it works, they don't understand irrigation farm. Or we built these dams so we could grow crops in droughts. Now we run the river full of environmental water during the droughts while the farmers get nothing. It's just absolute nonsense. But to buy votes in the cities, they roll these policies out and they don't care that it's killing our communities.
And I think, Tim, if you drive through Western New South Wales, you can see there is a significant decline in every single town in the inland of New South Wales. You can take out some of your larger cities like perhaps Albury and perhaps Wagga, but every other town is in decline. It's either in stagnation or decline. And I think if you drive through Victoria, if you take out a few of the northern cities, you would find it's very, very similar. All the country towns in Victoria are in decline, stagnation and decline.
Absolutely, and we have these irrigation communities out there where the only reason they were settled in areas that are very dry and very bare is because of the irrigation water. Once you turn that water off, the whole thing will blow away. There'll be nothing left.
That's right, Tim. And the Riverina State movement, you're obviously a supporter of that.
Oh, I think so. So it's basically there's a whole lot of different solutions. We talked about ways you could do it, but we've talked about a second federation for all of Australia. So not just northern Victoria, southern New South Wales, but a series of new states in Queensland, in New South Wales and Victoria,
West Australia.
We might end up with 10 or 15 states instead of the ones we have now. But we actually need it, and physically need it, or our communities will not exist.
That's right. And every state of Australia's got the same problem, Tim. There's a centralisation of every state, the state population, into one major centre, and that's happening in every state of Australia. And if that doesn't stop, these towns in the regional areas will just continue to stagnate and decline.
It doesn't have to be think there's some evil plot to do that. It's just economic forces do that. Once you have the power located somewhere, and the money flows in, and they build bureaucracies in the city. So the people who administer the whole country live in Sydney or Melbourne. They build their stuff there. More people come because of those jobs.
That's right.
It's a self-creating process, and the regional areas will be just wiped out.
They will.
We were just talking earlier about speed limits and roads. There's a push on to reduce speed limits in the bush because to save a few more lives. The science is really dodgy anyway on that. But people based in Melbourne and Sydney are drawing up rules to keep reducing the speed limits you can drive at, which just makes life in the country just less viable. That extends the time, your travelling times. Everything they do is just one more twist of the bolt tightening up, squeezing us out.
That's right. And Tim, and that's just one small example, but there's a lot of them. And existing support, Tim, now you're of the opinion there's actually a significant amount of support for this more than an idea, this principle or this movement or this idea. We'll stick with that word, this idea. There's significant support for that, Tim.
Look, if you talk about this in Sydney or Melbourne, they'll laugh at you. But when you talk to people in the regions about it, everyone goes, yes, actually, yes. And I think it is very widespread. Perhaps the coronavirus has created a catalyst moment, but with the timber, all the things they've done, the droughts, the timber industry, the bushfires, mismanagement, the Murray-Darling, it's building up into a real momentum. So I think right now we just need something as a catalyst, something to make it happen, and it's going to pop up. This opinion's been here. It's been here for 100 years or more. But we're reaching a crisis point where it's actually going to happen. I'm very keen to see it happen. I'm very keen to push this idea. So I think it's the time to think about it has stopped. The time to start talking about it and make it happen has arrived.
I think you're right, Tim. And Tim, I thank you very much for your time. It's been a great afternoon we've had here and a very interesting conversation. So once again, Tim Quilty, member for the Victorian Legislative Council and a member of the Liberal Democratic Party. Thanks very much, Tim.
Thank you.